Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Eat to Live podcast. Actually, today is the first time I'm doing the podcast without my daughter, Jenna, who's usually my sidekick in this podcast. But today I'm lucky enough to have a close friend of mine, Matt Lederman. He's down visiting from LA. And, I've known Matt for decades. He's been a fellow plant-based physician, but he's taken this concept of lifestyle medicine to like a new place that I'm so proud of him and so excited to have him contribute to not just the podcast and talk about his new book, which is called Wellness to Wonderful, that him and his wife, Alana, put together, right?
Yes.
But how many years have you been writing that book? And it's really cool.
Yeah, it's taken us a while to sort of accumulate all the information that we put in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to say it's not, even though he's very knowledgeable in plant-based nutrition and nutritional excellence, he took the book out of that realm, not solely in that realm, to encompass all of lifestyle medicine with a tremendous amount of wisdom, but practical wisdom that can be applied to people's lives to have them feel more content, more at peace, to raise healthy children, and to mostly have a happier and more joyous life. So really, really appreciated that and the work you put into that.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Thank you for acknowledging that. And thank you for your friendship. There was one, I was so excited that you asked me to join you because I see you as someone that if I ever have a question or a need, or even a friend of mine has a need, you'll put yourself out there to help them out and just do what you can to help people. So it's so clear that you just love helping people and contributing. So very happy to be here and for your friendship. Thank you.
Thank you. Same here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it. So how did this idea of this book come together? Because we know that you've been involved for decades in the field of nutrition, working with whole foods, working with forks over knives, a lot of work you did in that space. So how did you finally decide, well, I'm going to start to go outside of the nutritional realm to look for other aspects of mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health that can help people improve their health?
Right. What happened for me was following a very, very healthy plant-based diet and lifestyle from the perspective of sleep and exercise and sort of checking all those boxes. I was doing really well, but I still had issues that weren't resolving despite eating as cleanly as I was, and things around chronic pain and stress and navigating relationships and as a parent, as a partner, husband, and there were issues that just weren't getting better. And I would think, for example, certain chronic pain things, right? Or stress things. Maybe it's, a food allergy, or, people go into all these different food allergy paths, and food alone wasn't enough to address this. And it was through reading and learning that I stumbled upon connection and this concept of connection and how that affects your physical health. And just like with nutrition, and just like with other lifestyle interventions, that I first applied it in my own life. And when I found the power of that in my own life, I said, I want to bring this to all my patients. And that's sort of what happened. And we eventually put it into a book, but it's really changed how we've been able to support our patients. It's not that diet and lifestyle aren't important. They're super important.
Right.
And one without the other is a significant failure, in my opinion, right? So you have there's the diet and say, hey, connection's not a big deal. It's all diet.
Yeah.
And then there's connection people that say it's all about connection. It doesn't matter what you eat. Right. And I'm saying all of it's important.
Yeah, it's great. It's whatever the person's specialty or tool is, they make that the whole thing.
Right.
And they can it's just, if you're a meditator, then meditation will cure everything, right?
Exactly.
It's I think something like that. If you're
right.
And physicians just ignore everything. They just give people drugs.
Right. That's what's in their arsenal. That's their tool, right?
That's their tool. Yeah.
Right. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if physicians have these tools, I believe most physicians get into the business of medicine because they want to contribute and help people. They just aren't given the tools and the skills and the resources, right? With time included.
Right. That's great. So go into a little more specifics, because we talk about nutrition all the time. So let's go outside of the nutritional realm and go into this feeling of that we all have adversity and difficulty in our lives. And some of us, that stress is able to batter us down and really age us. And other people can deal with these adversities and stresses better and maintain better health and still have appreciate the world around them, joy in their interaction with other people, and a more positive outlook on life, and don't seem to focus on this negativity.
Right.
You know, let's go into that a little more, and we can also touch after that on this negativity bias that people have. They in some way feel more power or more self-important if they can be not, if they can have a more negativity bias and look for things to complain about.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And there's needs. And one of the things I did was I did a 4-year certification as a trainer of nonviolent communication.
Really?
Or compassionate communication, right? It was harder than medical school for me.
Really?
Right. Because it was about, in medical school, it's all about the head, understanding, logic, information. I'm really good at remembering, memorizing, thinking.
Right.
But nonviolent communication is taking stuff from understanding frameworks and then being able to go into your heart, into that space, into a felt experiential space, and sort of going back and forth from the head and the heart. And I find there's people that are really good at being in the heart space, and there's people really good at being in the head space. But it's hard for most people to go in one of the back and forth between the two. And I can give you an example.
Or to have them be integrated in a pleasing manner.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's, to me, is where the sweet spot is.
Right.
Can you put all that together? Right. So connection, what I mean by connection, we talk about, we actually want to create this term connection medicine. Right. So how I am with you, right? The emotional piece that everybody thinks is sort of the foo-foo, oh, it's nice to have, it feel good.
Right.
No, it actually is important for your physical health. It affects your physiology. And that, to me, was really fascinating. And there's more and more data coming out now that how we are, how we think, how we relate to ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, how we think about ourselves, as well as how we relate and talk to and think about other people, affects our physical health. And there's, it's not as lucrative to study this as it is drugs. So there's not as much data on this by far. But for example, there was a study that looked at empathy of the doctor and the impact on the patient's physical health. So one study looked at doctors who are high empathy doctors compared to low empathy doctors. And empathy is your ability to sort of be with the state of the other person, to know what, be with their feelings and how they are in that moment.
Yeah.
I look at that as connection, right? I can be present to what's going on in you. That's empathy, right? When you were ranked as a high empathy doctor compared to a low empathy doctor, the patients had 29% better hemoglobin A1Cs, 25% more likely to have a healthy level of LDL cholesterol. That was about 900 patients. Another study looked at over almost 21,000 diabetics. And when you had a high empathy doctor compared to just having a low empathy doctor, the patients had 41% lower odds of acute metabolic complications in these diabetic patients. So how the doctor was with the patient affected the patient's health. To me, that's really fascinating. The same thing was with trust. If you had a high trust doctor compared to a doctor that you felt low trust. So trust is how safe do I feel with you? Mm-hmm. If you said you had a high trust doctor and they gave you a stimulus compared to a low trust doctor giving you the same stimulus, painful stimulus, the people with a low trust doctor experienced more pain, and the fMRI pain centers in the brain on fMRI lit up more, even though it was the same stimulus. Mm-hmm. So getting it from a low trust doctor, not feeling safe with your doctor, affected your perception of pain. That, to me, is fascinating, that my connection with you affects my health, my perception of pain. That, to me, is fascinating.
Well, and we expand that out to your connection with everyone you communicate with in your life affects your health.
Right.
And every communication you have with another individual is an opportunity to make it into an opportunity to have a healthy connection or an unhealthy connection.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we can build our health muscle like our nutrition muscle by taking advantage of these opportunities, like exercise. Right. We're exercising our ability to connect.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
That's exactly, it's a muscle. It's something you can learn. It's a skill you can develop. And it's so worthwhile. And we are educated to actually think and interact with people in disconnecting ways.
I know. Yeah, right.
That's the problem. Yeah. It's not that we don't want to be connected. It's that we've been educated in a way that makes us very disconnected.
I've been saying something similar to this and thinking about it for a long time.
Oh, yeah?
The same idea that it's like when a person says something that might be confrontational. Mm-hmm. the person's been trained to like compete, have a comeback, put the person down, see them in a negative way, so you can make yourself feel better about yourself by feeling superior to them, or feeling, instead of trying to think about an opportunity to show them care, to show you care about them, to think about what they're thinking, and then you have a whole opportunity of possibilities of not just connecting with them, but even having positive influence in their life, because you're not in a competition with them, you're for them, and they can see you as being for them, not against them.
Exactly.
And you're building your own, and you're actually giving yourself that opportunity to have a better effect on them, but also you're protecting your own health in the process. You're building your own good health.
Exactly. And I think that's really important, is that it's great to empathize with someone because you think it's going to contribute to them. But even if you don't care about contributing to them, it's contributing to you. It's making you healthier, and it changes this is what I thought was really fascinating too, is it changes your physiology. If I react to someone and take them as a threat, and there's threat physiology and sort of the safety physiology that happens in our bodies. Threat physiology is pro-inflammatory, right? It affects it at the mitochondrial level, at the cellular level, the pro-inflammatory cytokine level, at the adrenaline, cortisol, the hormones, right? All of that is turned on when you experience threat to try and protect you from tissue damage and infection, all the stuff that happens when you actually are facing physical threat. But then it's supposed to go off, and that safety physiology is supposed to come back on. And that safety physiology are anti-inflammatory cytokines, right? It decreases the adrenaline, cortisol, right? And that is where people are living now, though, is instead of being able to turn that safety physiology back on, they remain in this threat physiology. And that's what you're talking about. So if someone comes at me, I can't control other people. And a lot of people try to control other people. That's a exercise in futility. Yeah. I can only control how I react to other people. That I can do 100% of the time. Yeah. So like you're saying, if someone comes at you when they're angry, really see them as hurting. And usually when people are hurting, they use words that make it the hardest to get the empathy they're needing. But if you can rise above that, not just for them, but for your own health, that's going to make life more wonderful for everybody. And it's going to make you healthier.
Right. And you're not seeing it as a direct threat against you, because you're not, it's they're going through something.
Right. And if you can do that, they're going through something. It's about them. Their reaction is about them.
It takes some practice. We do teach something like this at the retreat, because my experience is that when people are somewhat food addicted, and it's hard for them to make that change to eating a healthy diet, especially in the real world where people are ostracizing them or making them feel uncomfortable. And this person, his whole life is going after pleasing other people and behaving in a way to make the desires of their parents, their family, their friends, their workers, their coworkers, and trying to collect brownie points of having people like them and look superior in the eyes of their peers.
Right.
Right. And when you go out and you're going to be different, and you say, I'm not really drinking alcohol anymore. I'm not going to go to restaurants with you. I'm not going to sit down and have, and go into it's that you have to have a different way to build connections, number one. Right. And number two, this person's not going to survive or thrive on this diet, with this diet change, unless they have robust emotional health. Right. And the foundation of, and your book, what you wrote about is talks about all of the foundation and a lot of the techniques and exercises to build that robust emotional health. So you then can follow a diet and do better with giving up your addictions and the things that that you've used as a stress reliever, or used as a connection, or used to socialize with other people. People socialize over drinking coffee, over drinking alcohol, and sharing unhealthy food. That's what this country is all about.
Right. And we each have a section in the book where we say, if life otherwise stinks and all you have going for you is what you're eating for dinner, it's going to be really hard to all of a sudden go from a super stimulating sort of drug effect that you get from every meal, at dinner especially, and going to something that's natural and less stimulating. So food has become this, and this is where nonviolent communication is really helpful. It sounds like you almost have have you heard of nonviolent communication?
No, it's the first time I'm hearing it.
Very interesting. It's almost like this intuitively, right? But it's this idea that we're always trying to meet needs. It's about a needs-based consciousness, right? Everybody has the same needs. For example, I have a need for safety, I have a need for food, I have a need for choice, I have a need for meaning and purpose, I have a need for love, connection. Right. We all have those same needs. That's how we can come together. We have different strategies around meeting them. Food for most people is not just meeting the need, like for physical sustenance, right? It's meeting many other needs for them. Connection. That's how grandma expresses her love. Right. It's belonging. I fit in. So all these needs are being met by food, when really you want food to only meet one need, right? That sort of just the health, and that's it, right? And then you use other strategies to meet your needs for meaning and purpose and connection and love. But when people are used to using food in this other way,
right,
and you try to pull out of that, all of a sudden people are like, what? You don't, how do I meet my need for love for you, honey? You know, I cook for you, I bake for you. That's the only way I know how to express my need for love. So if you can tell them, I know you want to love me and food is your way of expressing it, but I'm really trying to figure out a way to accept and receive your love in a way that also meets my need for health. Would you be willing to talk about this so that we can meet all the needs? Right? It's not one or the other, a winner and a loser.
Right.
But once you identify the needs, then you can help them, because they don't even realize that's what they're doing.
Right. And also it's kind of like the ego creates this feeling of disconnection or loneliness, and I'm thinking that the person who's like so attuned to being hurt by other people and so dependent on the way other people see them, then they're laying themselves in a vulnerable position because they're more easily angered, more easily upset. They're going to feel the threat from any kind of perceived disapproval from another person, and they're going to lay themselves also under being vulnerable to other unhealthy habits.
Exactly. And to me, that's the need for acceptance. We all have a need for acceptance, including self-acceptance, right? And one of our tragic strategies to meet our need for acceptance is approval. Approval is one strategy of many, right? So how can I get a sense of being accepted that doesn't require other people to approve of me?
Right.
And that's what I think you're getting at.
Yes.
And it's you create a lot of suffering in your life, even though that's how we were taught, right? You know, you were a good kid when mom and dad approved of you. You know, you were a good student when you got good grades and your teacher approved of you. You know, you were a good worker when your boss gave you a bonus and they approved of you. So we've been educated in this way to be disconnected from our needs and instead focused and sort of feeding off this power over mentality, this external measure of what you should do instead of intrinsic.
Yeah, and posting like your pictures on Facebook to get people approval of how you look, or whatever all these superficial qualities that we're trying to get other people to approve of us to collect. And it's a never-ending, bottomless pit that goes nowhere, and you never really get truly satisfied when you keep going after that the approval.
Right, and I would say it's even worse on social media, because I don't know what the stats were, but I thought it was like for every selfie someone puts on there, they try about 100 pictures before they land on one. So what they're doing is they're giving themselves 99 critical experiences saying, that's ugly, that's not good, they're not going to like that. So even though they put this beautiful one-time picture and they think, oh, great, I'm meeting my need for connection and acceptance, you're actually beating yourself up every time you say you find something wrong with your picture or you add a filter because you're pointing out a flaw, right? So imagine kids like beating themselves up over and over again. It's really harmful.
Yeah, and they can never meet that criteria of like being a movie star or being a model. They're always comparing themselves against on the internet and trying to be perfect. And who's perfect? And they're trying to be, and it's very, very not only superficial, it's like hurtful to their emotional growth.
Hurtful. I would agree. It's very, very damaging.
Yeah.
And it's not that I would say you got to take it away from people, but we do have, I want to raise their awareness to the pain this is stimulating, even if they're not aware of it.
Yeah.
Right? It really does hurt them. And that to me, like we teach something, this is another big a business we're launching. So there's the book, Wellness to Wonderful and We Heal, but the other piece is this area called We Become. And it's really to help parents and kids. And we spend a lot of time coaching. It's using nonviolent communication and connection to help parents and kids.
Helping parents raise emotionally stable and better kids that'll be healthy in their future.
Exactly.
Both emotionally and physically, and have a well-rounded life. And that's really great. And
I'm so glad that you appreciate this, because there's people that say, like I said, this matters or this matters. So people will come to us and say, you're a diet doctor. Why are you talking to us about connection? And then I'll get people that see me from this other angle. They'll see me through, this couple recommended me. I help them with their kids.
Yeah.
And they'll come and see me and I'll say, but your husband's got cancer and he's eating, this keto diet. I'd love to talk to them about that. They're like, why are you talking to me about diet? You're a nonviolent communication guy.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking this is primary care. The way I do it is what I would really like it to be.
It's kind of like why it's like why I became a family physician, because I wanted to take care of the whole family at all stages of life and be able to be in a very holistic, and I think the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, it's why it's called lifestyle medicine, right? As not just nutrition, but it's just everything's interacts.
Right.
Yeah, that's really good. So, how does, if a person has childhood raising, family arguments, family difficulties, raising kids healthy, difficulty raising their kids healthfully, how do they get in touch with you to get coached by you in that field?
Right. So they can go to our website, webecom.com. And on there, we created this device to help kids regulate their nervous systems through slow breathing. So I actually thought of this idea when I was trying to get people to stop smoking. And I said, we talk about that needs-based consciousness. And I said, well, cigarettes do not meet needs for health, right? They're very harmful to your health. But I said, cigarettes do meet a lot of needs. So when we take the cigarette away and we say, just chew the gum, we're neglecting all these other needs. For example, imagine every hour you come down with a couple of friends, go outside, take 20 breaths of fresh air. Now you're putting cigarette smoke in there, but imagine you hold the cigarette, but every hour you go for a smoke break without the cigarette, smokeless smoke break.
Right.
And you go out and you take 20 deep inhales and slow exhalations, and you're with your friends and you get to unplug and then you go back to work. That's super health promoting and regulating to the autonomic nervous system, which has the health benefits I was telling you about and more. So I wanted to show kids, instead of the tool the parents have to calm their kids down is to yell at them to calm down. That was my parents' tool. I don't know about your parents, but it was like, calm down. That was all we had, right? And I was like, well, what if we teach them how to regulate? So we created this device that slows exhalation. So you can only blow out of it comfortably if you blow out slowly. When you're blowing out slowly, it holds a ball up. So you keep the ball aloft if you keep the steady flow. So now the kids have slow exhalation, focused attention on keeping the ball aloft, and there's white noise that comes out of the back as you're exhaling. And all of that together is really stimulating parasympathetic nervous system to help calm the kids down. And then we started giving it to adults and saying, use this when you get up, use this when you go to bed, use this before meals. So you can just sort of regulate the nervous system and calm your body and have your behaviors align with your intention, your values more. And people are telling me how much it's helping them. And that to me is, food, one of the things just swallowing, right? Eating, the chewing and swallowing stimulates the ventral vagus system, right? Which is calming, it's regulating. So it makes sense why people want to go and grab something and they have something that high, dopamine stimulation. It's regulating to the nervous system through chewing and swallowing. But we can regulate in different ways that are more health promoting. And that's the goal, is how can we find ways that are more effective and less costly to meet all of our needs?
Yeah. And people have just just use food for that.
Food.
Just go eat more food.
Right.
And can they use this thing when they feel like eating more food?
Yeah.
Take a couple, use this, because people can meditate and they can positive visualization and they can take a break. But I'm sure there's a lot of these new tools that are available to
them. And to me, regulation is different than meditation. People who have meditated for a while can regulate because they've built that meditation muscle. But people who are in that sort of chronic threat physiology, like when a tiger comes into the room, you're like, oh my God, and you're ready to pounce, right? Yeah. So that has the same effect on your physiology, the same sort of chemicals I was telling you about, adrenaline and pro-inflammatory cytokines that go through your body, the same from a physical threat as an emotional or spiritual or intellectual threat. So if I think about something that scares me or stresses me out, I shift my physiology the same way as if there was an actual tiger in the room, right? So what we want to do is imagine if there was a tiger in the room and you've never meditated before, and I said, meditate. You would say, my God, I can't meditate. There's danger right here.
Yeah.
So when people are living in that state of danger, it's hard for them to start meditating. So they'll say, I can't sit still. I can't meditate. It's because they're mobilized. They're in that fight flight. So what we do is say, let's regulate first. That's where this breathing tool is really helpful, so that they can get themselves safe enough, physiologically speaking, to then actually do a minute or two of meditation. Right? Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So that's really helpful.
Now, what about this? we're talking about life balance here, and one thing I liked that you talked about was the importance of play in people's lives. Because who talks about playing as an adult needing to play? So I thought that was very important that you put a whole chapter on adult play.
Yeah,
Book,
play is so.
We're
We've been
talking
taught,
about
right?
balancing a person's life with enough sleep, food, play. Putting play in there. I really thought that was true. Valid.
Yeah,
A valid
and
concept.
it's so important that's why we wanted to devote a whole chapter to it and one pillar to it, right? So it's that, and we've been educated again, not only how we think and how we respond to people, but also we said, be productive, stop playing around, do something constructive.
Yeah.
Right. That's how we've been educated.
Yeah.
But kids are born, they know that play is a need, right? It's a universal human need, that recreation, right? And not only that, remember I was talking about putting yourself into a state of safety. It's for your nervous system. It's important to play. It's very hard to play and be anxious at the same time, right? So people who have all sorts of stress responses, if they really get in there and are playing, it's going to give that nervous system a break from that stress response, which has that cascade of effect I was telling you about the impact of being in that threat physiology.
Do you think people should play every day?
Oh yeah, I think people should play whenever they can. And the more you can bring play in as a strategy, it's a fantastic way of working with kids. For example, when I bring play into how we parent, and the way we parent, we talk about collaborative, non-permissive parenting. That's the philosophy we teach. Collaborative, but non-permissive, meaning everybody, I'm not going to just meet your needs. We're going to meet your needs and my needs. And we're not going to meet your needs at the expense of mine, right? We got to meet everybody's needs. So that play is a fantastic way of disarming and connecting, right? And it's actually really important for kids as developmentally to play with each other and to play actually in person, because they're learning how to read and connect and interact with people. And it's very healing to their nervous system. So
can you give some examples of how you might play as a family, play with kids, or how us people who are older, whose kids are older, how we keep play in our lives?
All right. So it's a lot of people when they get older will work with patients and they'll say, I don't know how to play. Yeah. I say, well, if you had nothing you had to accomplish, all of your needs were taken care of, food, money, what would you do right now? Yeah. And sitting and watching a movie, can meet some needs for some people at times, but that's not play the way I'm talking about it. Right? I'm talking about, and if you're not sure, one of the ways is I would wish this upon my children. If I would wish this upon my children, it's probably something that's really health promoting and healing, right? So when people, for example, when people say, oh, I love drinking. Drinking is this great, alcohol is this great thing. Would you wish that on your children? Yeah. No, you don't want your kids to be great drinkers? Then maybe you want to think about that again. Not that you can't drink, but do you see what I'm saying? Versus, I took this fantastic bike ride through with a couple of friends on this, mountain biking. Yeah. Would you wish that on your children? Yes, I would. I think that'd be great for them, right? So to me, it's that idea of content-free or activities that you're not really caring about the outcome.
Right. It could be like
pickleball.
Pickleball could be like finger painting.
Finger painting, right? Could
Working
be
with clay.
Right. It could be just taking turns. We'll do play where the four of us sit on a couch and we'll take turns. Everybody goes around and says something that you really enjoy about the other person. Mm-hmm. Right. So it doesn't have to be active physically. It can be something, but it's just, there's no requirement around the outcome. It's just you're present, fully present.
Could be like karaoke or something. Right?
Karaoke, telling jokes, reading jokes together, doing riddles, puzzles together, board games, going for a walk, right? I like to go for wanders where you say, I don't really know where we're going to go. You just wherever, and I'll do that with my kids. I'll say, where do you want to, whenever you feel like going, whatever direction you want, you go, I'm going to follow you. And they'll be like, well, should we go straight or right? Check in with your body. Where's your body want to go? And then they'll go left and they'll say, oh, now my body wants to go this way. And then that's play, right? Versus, oh, we got to go around the block 3 times. That's less play. Does that make you feel the difference there?
Yes, because one is like you have to reach this goal of what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly.
Play doesn't have anything you need to accomplish. You're just doing it for pure enjoyment.
Pure enjoyment, presence. You don't care so much about the outcome. So basketball could be play and basketball could be work.
Yeah.
Right? Because it depends on if you're really focused on the outcome. If you're focused on let's have fun, let's be present, let's connect with each other, right? That's play.
Yeah. I know I was a competitive figure skater, but the idea of having to win and beat other people and perform perfectly created chronic stress. And I meant my first competition in Europe at the junior world, and I was like, couldn't sleep for like 3 weeks. They worried about I would make a mistake or something.
Huh.
That was not the idea. It didn't foster the enjoyment of skating and the freedom of like flying through the air on the ice. Then when I got older and I was out of that competitiveness, and just feeling, wow, this is skate. I just can go skating and have fun.
Yeah.
Just the feeling of spinning or jumping through the air. I don't really have to have any outcome to try to beat anybody or do anything perfectly.
Right.
I just like the feeling of going fast down skis or on skates or something.
Right.
Yeah.
That's play. Like there's nothing wrong with trying to do your best.
Yeah.
But trying to be the best,
Yes.
that now start to cause suffering. Yeah. Right. It's like one of the best ways to make yourself miserable is to compare yourself to someone else.
Yeah. And then you have to hope that they do badly.
Right.
So you could do good, and you're not having goodwill for another person. You're hoping they're unhappy, so make yourself. The whole thing is based on not the greatest emotional health.
Right.
We should all be like performing just to have people enjoy watching and more enjoy performing. It doesn't matter whether our comparison to anybody else, and there's no stress.
Right. And
you don't have to be perfect.
Right. You don't have to be perfect. You can push yourself.
Yeah.
But you're pushing yourself because you want to see what you can do, not because you want to beat somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. To me, that's the goal, is getting connected. And this is, I think, as a parent, one of my number one jobs is to try and get my children, to support them connecting to what they value and having their actions be congruent with their values. Right. So that's what I want them to connect to. So when they say, Dad, do I have to eat this food or not? I'll say, well, I'm not going to make you eat anything, but I'd love to talk about, if I have concerns about the food, would you be willing to listen to what I have? And then I know that you value health too, right? And I know you value caring about the animals. And I know, so I'd love to hear what food choices are going to meet those needs of yours. Would you be willing to share with me after we talk about this?
Right.
And then we'll figure out what to eat. But don't worry about what to eat right now, eating or not eating this. I want to connect with you. And that's the key, is I'm focused on the connection more than the outcome.
Yeah.
And the outcome falls into place, especially when I can help my children connect to their values versus them fighting, right? A lot of kids are trying to meet their need for autonomy because their parents are telling them what to do. So they're in this submission rebellion dynamic.
Yes, of course.
So then they don't even connect to their needs. They're busy trying to just fight what the parents are pushing on them.
Yeah, and immediately creates conflict, pushback, and you're not even doing you're not behaving in your own best interest anymore.
Right. You don't even know what your best interest is.
Yeah, you don't, exactly right.
You're busy trying to figure out what your parents are wanting, or to avoid punishment or ridicule or abandonment or worse.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can, and that's what so many patients will come to us and say, just tell me what to eat. Tell me what to do. I'll write it down. And I say, that's not, I can do that, but what's going to make you sustain this for the rest of your life, which is what I really care about, is for you to connect to your own internal values around and learning what to eat, what not to eat, because it resonates for you, not because, Dr. Joel Fuhrman told you to, or Matt Lederman told you to, right? That's where you want to get them. And my guess is your most successful patients don't need you to tell them what to eat.
Correct.
They know because it feels right to them.
The most successful individuals who've lost 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 150 pounds, and they kept it off 5, 10 years, and they never would think about changing, going back to the old way of living, are people their identity has changed.
Right.
And they get personal pleasure in being a role model, what they've accomplished, and their ability to have a good effect on other people because of what they've learned and what they've accomplished in their own life.
Right. And they're not doing it because they have to. They're doing it because they want to.
Yeah.
Right. And people look at me like I'm crazy sometimes. They're like, you enjoy eating, whole food plant. And I'm like, I love it. Yeah. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. And what I did, though, is I said, if I don't like something, I'm going to work really hard to figure out how to like food that falls into this category. Because I don't like everything that's whole food plant-based, but I figured out a way to make it work for me. And that's what I do with patients, is it's pretty simple what to eat, right? That's not rocket science. It's trying to figure out how to make that work for that person that's challenging, how to navigate all the gauntlet of their lives, all the social interactions you were talking about, for example, right? But what to eat is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
If all they needed was information on what to eat, you'd probably be out of a job if that was all it took, right?
Right. Yeah, right.
Right. It's like, how do you make it work for that person? And how do they navigate this and all the noise and all the questions and all the issues that come up? And, when you're unhappy with yourself, it doesn't, whether you're 200 pounds overweight, believe me, losing the weight alone is not going to change your world, right? Like you said, like I've had so many patients that they'll come up to me and say, I thought I wasn't happy because of the weight, right? But the weight was actually a symptom of the unhappiness, right? And it was, granted, they needed to learn what to eat differently, but even once they learn differently, if they don't fix the rest of their lives, now they're just thin and unhappy, right? You want people to be thriving and thin, right? That's what you want. And to me, that takes a lot more than just learning what foods to eat. It's changing your identity, like you said.
Yeah. And we're changing people's identity. And like you said in your book too, it's that giving your life more joy. Taking care of your health should be giving your life more joy.
Exactly. And it's not about, joy is not about being happy all the time either.
Right.
It's about when you're sad, you feel your sadness and then it passes through. When you're happy, you feel your happiness fully and then it passes through. Feelings come and go by the minute. Right? But when I'm thinking about the future, I'm a glass is half full, or that's what I'm trying to cultivate that skill, right? When I think about the past, I think about, hey, what went well? There's no benefit to you to thinking about the future and assuming the worst or seeing the glass as half empty, right? But we've been educated to do that. So that's why it comes habitually to you. I wouldn't say that's natural. I would say that's habitual. But we can change that. And I think people say, well, you can't always think that the glass is half full. You're living in denial. And I'll say, no. I'll say in the present moment, if you're feeling, sadness or anger or hurt, feel it fully. But then it's going to pass when you feel it fully, when you're not trying to suppress it or resist it. And then it passes and you move on. It's just a flow. But when I'm thinking about the future, I'm trying to educate myself and teach myself to, not only through gratitude, but through other practices, to see the glass as half full.
Right. So it's almost like the people also, they'll take the past and they'll try to look at their negative past and reasons to blame, feel the victim to be as an explanation for their present unhappiness, instead of, which, is not, there's reasons, of course. There may be, episodes of childhood trauma or something.
Right.
But we have to focus on what we can do now in our own life to be the best version of ourselves, with the most positive aspect of trying to enjoy the world, enjoy our life, and try to, and that's because that's how we recover from this negative trauma we might have had. The way we recover is having the best emotional outlook on life and having this, instead of the negativity bias, trying to cultivate the eye of an artist to look for things to appreciate in life, and have this positivity bias, right?
Right. And there's trauma healing that can be done as well. That gets done in the present moment. That does not, even though your brain thinks it's healing itself by thinking about the past over and over again, that's not going to heal trauma. So when we work with people with trauma, right, we do that in the present. And that's what's beautiful about nonviolent communication. It's very much about the present. So even when you think about the past, what I connect to is, what are you feeling in the present moment when you think about the past? I want to be very present. The more we can be present, the better. So not only can trauma healing happen and only happen in the present, right? The joy is stimulated in the present, and the thinking about the past and trying to make sense of the past, or we're trying to meet needs, right? We're trying to make sense of it. We're trying to maybe help ourselves feel safer. If we understand it, we can prevent it from happening again.
Right.
Predict need for predictability. Maybe I can sort of manage the future if I understand it. If I'm always looking for the worst thing that can happen, I'll protect myself. So maybe needs for protection and safety. But it's such a high cost. Like if you so focused on meeting your need for protection, right? You could live in a walled up igloo and never come out. Yeah. But you're sacrificing all these other needs of life at a certain point. You're preventing yourself from feeling any joy. Right? So I'll tell people, I love the saying of, in a room full of ponies, all you see is poop on the floor, right? That to me is an opportunity. It's not a criticism. It's to say, hey, and I'm one of those. I'm like a recovering, glass is half negative type of guy.
Really?
That's how I was brought up, right? The world is going to is not going to care about you, and there's all these problems. You got to look out for them. You got to get what's yours. You got to find out, that's a pretty miserable way to go through life. And believe me, I did that for a long time. And to what end? How did that? It didn't protect me from anything, right? I still had issues. I still had problems. I still had pain. So it's this illusion that it's going to help us in some way. Once I realized that was an illusion, and I learned these skills on how to do it differently, and then I hung out with, that's the other thing, right? When you hang out with people, if you hang out with people that only see the negative, it's going to be very hard to see the positive.
Yes.
Right. So you have to change your environment, right? Similar to changing your identity, so that you can create a space that's really going to hold you, because these are all new skills that you're learning now.
Fantastic.
Beautiful stuff.
Well, good stuff. Well, got to wrap things up, Matt, and been such an honor to have you here, and pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for valuing the content of our book so much and the work we're doing.
Oh,
thank you so much.
Love it. His book again is Wellness to Wonderful. Strongly recommend people get that book. And Matt and his wife Alana have, did I say her name properly? Pronounce that correctly?
Alona.
Yeah, I thought I got it. Yeah. Matt and Alona are just done a wonderful job in their writing and their work and in their practice, right?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you guys next month.